said he's not a crooked politician. Imagine that.
Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for all of those who have passed away in our community, especially Senior U.S. District Judge Richard Conboy and Mrs. Joan Gallagher, mother of Denny Gallagher, the city's DPW director. May we keep them and their families in our prayers at this time. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Donahue?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here. We are going to do a proclamation, so if our guests want to come up front with us. We'd like to thank our guests for coming in today. I think this is the third or fourth year we've done a proclamation for pancreatic cancer. So whereas in 2018, the American Cancer Society estimates that 55,440 people in the United States will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest cancers, and 44,330 people will die from the disease. Whereas that's more than 152 people, our mothers, daughters, fathers, sons, wives, husbands, sisters, brothers, colleagues, and friends who will hear the dreaded news every single day. And whereas the average lifetime risk for pancreatic cancer for men is about 1 in 63, and for women the risk is about 1 in 65. And whereas pancreatic cancer takes 91% of its victims within 5 years and kills more people than breast cancer in the United States. Whereas the disease is the third leading cause of cancer-related death, and it's projected to become the second leading cause by 2020. Whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in Scranton and nationwide through a comprehensive approach that includes public policy, research funding, patient services, public awareness, and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. Whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer, as well as those who have lost their lives to this disease. And they're committed to nothing less than a cure. And whereas to double survival by 2020, we must advocate for increases in federal funding for cancer research to enable pancreatic cancer patients to receive better treatment and outcomes. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of the city of Scranton are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Now therefore be it resolved that Scranton City Council wishes to designate Monday, November 19th, 2018 as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in the city of Scranton. Be it further resolved that this proclamation be made a permanent part of the minutes of Scranton City Council. And at this time, I'd like to present this proclamation to Christian Saunders.
I just want to say thank you for the proclamation, and Unfortunately, as Mr. Rogan said, pancreatic cancer is now going to be the second leading cause of cancer deaths in this country. My sister-in-law, former Mayor Jim Connor's sister, passed away in 1994. There have not been many strides made since that time. I think Tim Perry, your grandfather, if I'm not mistaken, also died from pancreatic cancer. So unfortunately, what we need is more research to find early detection tools, and I want to thank all of you and, again for recognizing this dreaded disease, and hopefully if we come back next year, we will have made some strides in finding not only early detection but a cure, because as you said, it's only 9% survive after 2 years. So it is one of the deadliest cancers that is out there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to say a few words? Mayor?
No, she's doing well.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Good job, Rick.
Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, check received November 5, 2018 from Comcast in the amount of $253,543.09 for quarterly franchise fee.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B, tax assessor's report for hearing date held November 14, 2018.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3C, minutes of the Civil Service Commission meeting held September 6, 2018.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3D, minutes of the regular meetings of the Lackawanna County Land Bank held September 14 and October 12, 2018.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3E, check received in the amount of $500 from Harrison House Personal Care Home, which is payment in lieu of taxes.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3F, minutes of the regular meeting of the members of Scranton Housing Authority held October 1, 2018.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3G, tax assessor's results report for hearing date held October 30, 2018.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3H, controller's report for month ending October 31, 2018.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have announcements at this time?
I have one. This year, Small Business Saturday falls on November 24th, the annual holiday shopping tradition that gets communities everywhere out in support of their favorite small businesses that make our community vibrant and unique. We celebrate Small Business Saturday, a shopping holiday that's meant to boost awareness and support of businesses both local and small, because when they thrive, we all thrive. And local money stays local. Spending $100 at a local business results in $68 that stays in the community, compared to $43 for national and franchise businesses. So please consider supporting small businesses this Saturday and all throughout the holiday season. This Sunday, November 25th, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., the Buy Local Holiday Marketplace will be held at the Scranton Cultural Center, where you will find some of the area's finest artisans, crafters, and local businesses. The marketplace features approximately 120 vendors and offers 5 floors of shopping. Admission is $2, and the first 1,000 shoppers receive a free reusable shopping bag, courtesy of FNCB Bank. Food and drinks will be available for purchase that day. So please take some time and visit the local shops and small businesses. It's very, very important that we all do our part. And that's all I have.
Does anyone else? I have a few. This Thursday, November 22nd, is Thanksgiving, and we'd like to wish everyone a happy holiday. City Hall will be closed Thursday and Friday in observance of the holiday. DPW will only be off on Thursday. Refuse and blue recycling will be just one day behind for the remainder of the week. Next Monday, November 26th, we will hold a public hearing in council chambers at 5:15 for the operating budget. And the week of December 10th to the 14th, DPW will be collecting leaves and not newspaper this week. The city is encouraging everyone to bag their leaves. Please do not rake them to the curb. As I mentioned at a few meetings, free leaf bags are available at any fire station in the city and also at the DPW headquarters at 101 Poplar Street. Again, the leaves will be collected the week of December 10th. And finally, the owner of Buona's, Giovanni Piccolino, asked me to announce that he will once again this year be hosting a free Thanksgiving luncheon. All are welcome between 12 and 2 p.m. at Buona's downtown on Lackawanna Avenue. And we'd like to thank Mr. Piccolino for his continued generosity in our city.
I have one as well. The Lackawanna County Commissioners agreed to participate in the Philip Morris USA initiative that is providing 10,000 free litter stands to collect cigarette butts in communities nationwide. Interested municipalities may participate through the county for an opportunity to obtain a stand at no cost to place at your municipality's heaviest smoking area. Then it goes through the requirements. So, Mrs. Reed, if we could forward this to the mayor's office and the DPW director to see if they will sign up for this. I think it's a great idea, a great program. And then we'll have to, or the administration will have to figure out where our heaviest smoking areas are, maybe downtown. That's all. Thank you.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Our first speaker tonight is Lee Morgan.
Good evening, Council. Well, this evening I thought I'd speak about something that managed to make the front page of the Scranton Times newspaper today, which is the reassessment lawsuit that's going to hit the Lackawanna County Court on the 30th of November. And I think it's important for the residents to realize that they also have a right to petition the court. And I'd wait until this assessment was completed before I'd do that. Because if the residents in the city experience any increase in taxation, then I would petition the court that the reassessment can't be real. It has to be political, but it has to be not based on fact. Because I've talked to quite a few people who owned property in this city. Some of them owned their property for over 50 years, and when they finally sold it, they sold it for less than what they paid for it 50 years prior to that. So with that said, when you look at the going rate of real estate in the city, it's just so mind-boggling on the lack of value it has. As a matter of fact, it's almost disgraceful. So, I mean, it's great that the city of Scranton, its elected officials have really pressured, put a lot of pressure on the situation, but the reality is that the city itself has been mismanaged for so many decades that it thinks that it's entitled to any amount of taxation which it feels compelled to try to collect, whether it's legal or illegal. And it's just reached the point where, in all reality, the 2.4% wage tax should completely go away, because the residents in this city shouldn't pay 2.4% of their wages to live in this city. It's just not proper. It's not right to tax people's wages. Now, real estate? I don't know. I mean, you take a look at the deal that the council passed through here to liquidate the Scranton Sewer Authority, and then you ask yourself, Scranton's elected officials, how much of that sale actually went into the pensions? The residents need to ask this question. The residents need to ask a multitude of many different questions to try to reach a conclusion on what's failed in the city. And I think, with all due respect to Scranton's elected officials, we've just had one misaligned public official after another come in with a lot of quick fixes and a lot of borrowed money and a lot of ideas that I feel a lot of them came out of Harrisburg. And they haven't created any yield for the residents of this city. None. There's no upward mobility in this city. And if you happen to be almost 60 years old like I am, and you grew up here and you remember what this city looked like when I was a child, it's not even a shadow of that anymore. And now we're just gonna keep wasting money and pretending like we have some kind of solution to the residents' problems. And the truth of the matter is, the city's hit a financial wall. And you know, people ask, well, what's taking Judge Gibbons so long on all these lawsuits that are sitting before him? Well, I think it's an avalanche. I think it's going to bring great harm to the residents of this city. And you know, you have to ask yourself that there are other communities outside the city of Scranton that have a combined stormwater collection system. They're not paying anywhere near the sewer rate Scranton was paying before the Scranton Sewer Authority managed to sell itself with the help of the city administration. But, you know, the question that all these residents need to ask these council members and the mayor is, what benefit did the selling of the Scranton Sewer Authority do for the residents of this city? And when the residents decided to build this system and floated bonds, was it their intention to have that sewer authority used as a tool for monetization by the city government? Or was that designed to do a much different thing? And you know, it's just amazing how we elect people who sell assets that don't belong to them. And they just keep selling things. You take a look at the Southside Sports Complex. They sold that. The Scranton Redevelopment Authority has $100,000, and the city agreed to build a park in the city after it sold the Southside Sports Complex. Where is that park? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, taxpayer, citizen. Once again, talking trash. Somebody deposited a computer monitor in front of our house over the weekend sometime. I wasn't there to watch it 24 hours a day. I don't know who did it, but we've been checking online and well, it's like 25 bucks to get rid of one. Gee, thanks, whoever did it. The sewer, once again, I'm concerned that that money that the bond issue replaces doesn't wind up being piddled away. It's not right. And hopefully it won't just go for, it'll go for something intelligent, not whatever. 41 sets of tires on our, that has nothing to do with you, but our truck in the school district, and you know, somebody's door was right open to take them in. Used tires, okay, I put used tires on my cars a lot because I can get a good deal. And I have the knowledge to assess them. I'm going to go backtrack a little bit from a few weeks on political issues. Healthcare, preconditions. Somebody wound up in jail over their health insurance, and the thought occurred to me, you know, maybe had they not been so anti-healthcare and we got a decent healthcare policy instead of the Affordable Health Care Act with the 151 amendments in the Senate, they might not have gotten themselves in trouble. Social Security and Medicare, they're crowing now after their massive tax cut that they can't afford the entitlements or benefits of Social Security. Well, as the old song goes, nothing from nothing is nothing, and I'll add to it, too little plus too little is still too little. Patriotism. We have, you know, they're even bashing today a certain person bashing the Navy SEAL that put a slug into Osama bin Laden. You know, gee, must be nice to get out of the draft 5 times. We had a little bit to worry about. I didn't serve, and I didn't volunteer, but I didn't dodge the draft. And I didn't dodge my taxes either. Didn't have the resources to do that. We have a bunch of pro-embryos, and they're calling birth control as or family planning as abortion. They're actually spreading out. And, you know, the thought occurred to me with all these fires and everything, we have a world population growth that's been out of control in the 60s, and with these people, we can't even encourage third world emerging nations to limit their population growth. It's really, and then on top of it, we have about 1/5 of each of those countries want to live on a Western standard of living. Really. No wonder we're doomed. ICE, sanctuary cities, does ICE pick them up? No. So if you release them over a traffic violation, you're a sanctuary city. How do you kick out 10 million people out of the country without causing a humanitarian problem? I don't think many people have ever succeeded in doing that. Some people tried. Energy. We're selling frack gas to Poland. We're compressing it down into liquid and selling it to Poland. Well, you know, that is a finite resource, and obviously, once again, just like the coal, we get our lands destroyed and it gets shipped somewhere else, and we're left with holding the bag. It's just amazing how these things change. As soon as they build those pipelines down to Wilmington, I'll finish, please, and down to Chesapeake, believe me, the cost of gas is going to shoot way up. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Norman Jeffries, a Scranton resident. I have a real simple question tonight, and it's on, maybe you could tell me where to go with my issue, and it's on parking. And since the streets have been repaved, you know how they cut it out and they say that no parking is allowed? And if you go up Vine Street at Vine and Quincy, Vine and Clay, Clay and Olive, and they have the markouts there, but I don't know how old those markouts are, because even though there's cars parked in those markouts, and they have the right-of-way coming up Clay Avenue in Quincy, so if you cannot see down the street because the cars are parked in those little markouts, you know, so I've seen the lady, and she is a lady in the parking authority car, and I've always tried to catch up with her to see if what the issue is or what the regulation is for those markouts. And maybe there's a certain size car that can park there. I know that when those great big cars, the muscle trucks park there, forget it, you know, because they're so tall. So I was just thinking about who do I write to, or who do I say, because I wasn't able to catch up with the individual in the parking enforcement car.
Are you
I have
talking
seen her
about
around.
the corner intersection areas that are marked no parking?
Yes.
They're painted on the street, no parking?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the university does a lot of that, but it's still they do it, you know, for the area, for the hill section, but that is who is responsible to enforce that, is the civilian enforcement parking individuals. So I would call the police department and talk to someone there, because they're in charge of that operation. And they shouldn't be driving by if they're legally parked cars.
Yeah, because her car goes by, you know, because
Yeah.
I hope to catch up with her, but I know it's a her because I could see it that close, you know. That's my thing today. I just want to know who to contact about it because it is an issue. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Marie Schumacher. I was disappointed to find that you have postponed your caucus because I had understood that the intent was that you would get the budget no later than it was received and put on the agenda for this week. And you were going to ask the questions, and Mr. Bolzoni was going to be here, and maybe even the mayor. And I was very anxious to hear what questions you guys have on it beforehand. And now it's not even going to occur for 2 weeks. And are we going to hear when there's going to be a public hearing? Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want us to come up with.
I did announce that at the beginning
problems.
of the meeting. It's 5:15 next week.
Thank you. And I think it's premature, and I guess the message I'm getting is we've got at least 3 puppets up there who are willing to accept the budget as it is because you're already setting the taxes based on the budget. I think that's putting the cart before the horse very seriously, and it's very disappointing that we're not going to hear anything from you.
That's tax enabling legislation, which can be changed. We changed it previously, and we can change it again.
Okay. Are there any savings in this budget from shared services?
Not that I saw when I did my review. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow, Councilman Donahue and I, with the mayor and the superintendent of schools. So we will have something soon on the Shared Services Committee.
Thank you. Okay, now we've got a birthday coming up, and so I would like to read a little prelude about that. Attorney Minora, have a birthday in 2 weeks. Attorney Minora has received the double pension scandal report from the state police, so council members will be asked to. There is going to be some documentation we have to sign before reviewing it, but we do have that report, and it's something I'm very anxious to read. And over the next couple of weeks between the end of this session and swearing in next year, I'll be thoroughly examining that report. Again, we will be bound by certain legal restrictions on what we can say. For instance, if there was a member of the pension board who was interviewed by the state police multiple times, we couldn't mention that person's name. We couldn't mention anything within that report, naming names, anything of that nature. But what we can do is use that information to try and put reforms in place that will prevent this from happening again. We haven't seen, as I mentioned, we haven't seen it yet. I have my suspicions on how this transpired, who the people who have committed possibly crimes that unfortunately, because of the statute of limitations, they cannot be addressed as crimes. But it's our obligation to make sure this doesn't happen again. So reviewing those reports is something that I will work on diligently over the next month or so. Mr. Rogan, I'm sure you recognize that because it's your quote.
It's a great quote.
And you have no ego problems, I see. Anyway, I did check with you once before, and you said you had to get together with you did have ideas, and you'd all done it, and here we are, almost a year, and nothing.
We actually have legislation there actually is legislation completed. There is some discussion on whether a couple of the things that are in it can be enacted. And if Attorney Minora wants to chime in, I know Larry Durkin was reviewing it as well, our city solicitor was, and unfortunately, believe me, I want this legislation done more than anyone. I've put a lot of time and effort into this issue. There will be legislation. Unfortunately, it's taking longer than we would like.
We've had several meetings on it, and we have the changes we'd like to make in mind and ready to go. It's a matter of making sure that they conform with state law, and so we've been back and forth to make sure that as best we can affect the changes that we'd like and do that within the state law so there'll be no challenges to it.
There will be legislation.
Yeah, it's just disappointing that it's taken over a year.
I agree.
And Whoops, I guess I have to wait till next week.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Fifth order, 5A, motions.
Mr. Perry, do you have any motions or comments?
Yeah, just quickly, just to follow up with Mrs. Jeffries and her issue. Mrs. Reed, if we could send something out to Chief Graziano to take a special patrol and special interest into the Hill section, particularly Clay Olive, Vine, Quincy areas for anybody parked in an area that's just not going to let anybody see past the no parking sign. And then maybe we can do a follow-up to DPW to see about any kind of no parking markers on the street itself. I know that we have other people that take care of it, but city street is city's responsibility. So let's see if there's a need there for maybe some repainting as well, just to make sure it's clear. And I'm sure there's the proper signage is up already, but it wouldn't hurt. Other than that, the only other thing I have to talk about is Thanksgiving's coming up, so everybody have a safe and happy one. Enjoy your friends, enjoy your family. That's what this time of year is all about. And as Councilman Evans brought up, this Saturday is a Shop Small Saturday. We want to stay local, keep everything in the area, keep things, as he mentioned, when you go to a big box store, you might get a little bit better price, you might get a little bit more variety, but you're never going to get that service that you were used to getting when you go to your neighborhood store. It's just night and day. So again, support our local business, support our local economy. You spend here, the money stays here, and that's what that's what community is all about. So again, guys, happy Thanksgiving and be happy, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Any motions or comments?
Yes. First off, I'm in the process of reviewing the budget, so I'll have more on that in the upcoming weeks. Mrs. Reed, we sent that letter to the County Director of Assessments back in September, and we still haven't gotten a response. And I was just reminded that when I was looking at the tax assessor's report for the hearing date, that theirs wasn't changed, that they still haven't responded to that. So would you be able to send another letter, please? And that's all I have for this week.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, any motions or comments?
Yeah, briefly. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I hope you have a great holiday. Today marks the 3-year anniversary of the passing of Bob McGough, former City Council President. So I hope Bob's memory can continue to serve as a reminder to all of us to always strive for a little more civility, to always strive to be a better human being, and to always strive to do the very best that we all can for the citizens of Scranton. 3 years ago on this very night, in fact, during our council meeting that evening, we learned that our friend and colleague Bob McGough had lost his battle to cancer. I have had the honor each year on this solemn anniversary to take a brief moment from the evening's business and read Bob's own words of wisdom on the topic of cancer that he spoke during a city council meeting. Bob said, "Just one thing I would like to mention. I would like to just say that I know all of us have been affected in some way by this insidious disease. And I would encourage anyone that knows someone who is fighting this or dealing with treatments involved with cancer to be a friend. One of the things that happens to cancer patients and those under treatment, depression is a very significant aspect of it. And I believe it or not, simply sitting down and talking with people, watching a television show with them, bringing dinner and having something to eat with them goes a long way to helping people deal with that. And I would encourage that if you know someone, please be a friend and be part of the helping process." Bob McGough is someone who understood the importance of even the smallest gesture, someone we will always have great respect, and his words are worth mentioning once again in his honor and his memory. And that is all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gahn, any motions or comments?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I just want to echo what Mr. Rogan said at the beginning of the meeting about Director Gallagher's mother who had passed away. My thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. Also, Judge Conaboy, who was a respected judge in the community and a respected human being in the community and a great person, also passed away in the last 2 weeks. So I want to send my thoughts and prayers out to his family as well. And as Councilman Evans mentioned, the today is the 3-year anniversary of our colleague and our friend's passing, Bob McGough, and I think every time we step into the city clerk's office, we think about him and all he meant to the city and to this council. So our thoughts are with him and his family tonight as well. I received a frantic message from a resident on East Mountain, Froud Avenue. Mrs. Reed, I think I did give it to Mrs. Reed already. They're having runoff issues on Froud Avenue. And Mrs. Schumacher's laughing because she knows this isn't a new problem. And I think we've sent this before, but when it rains and there's runoff, especially when it gets cold and it's icy, they literally are trapped. They cannot leave their homes. So, Mrs. Reed, I don't know if you sent it already, but if we could just draft a letter to the DPW director and the city administration and make them aware of this again, and hopefully they can go out and they can do something to alleviate this problem. Also, council received a letter about a tree that is about to fall on a home at 2622 Lafayette Street, the rear of Byron Lane in between Lafayette and Briggs Street. So, Mrs. Reed, I do have a copy of that letter. If we could forward that to the appropriate department and copy Mr. Santulli on that, I'd appreciate it. Also, last thing I want to mention tonight, I think 2 or 3 years ago, worked along with my colleagues with the American Lung Association to institute a program called the Young Lungs program, and we got free signage that we put up throughout the parks, trying to prevent people from smoking in our city parks, from leaving cigarette butts all over the place, and it ended up being, I think, so far a huge success. So I recently met again with the American Lung Association. I'm sure some of you have seen the recent articles in the news about vaping, which has become a major epidemic. Just reading an article earlier today, this is from Saturday, November 17th. The new numbers on vaping are staggering. Vaping has increased nearly 80% among high schoolers and 50% among middle schoolers since last year. There's health experts that say behavior changes are keys to look for as more and more children and young adults become addicted to nicotine, causing psychological changes to their brain. So it's a huge epidemic, not only in the country, but I think in the city of Scranton. Also, when I met with the American Lung Association, one of the things that they had presented to me, and I believe there was a young person that came up months and months ago and presented this to council, there's something called the Tobacco Resistance Unit Youth. And these are local high school students who actually completed 81 separate tobacco retail assessments in the city of Scranton. The Tobacco Resistance Unit Youth is a movement throughout Pennsylvania to help youth ages 12 to 18 stay tobacco and nicotine free, and their goal is really to prevent and stop youth tobacco use through education. And they came up with this program, this point of sale program, to collect different data from establishments throughout the city of Scranton. So in reviewing the report, there were some really shocking statistics, and I won't go through all of them, but I'll just highlight some of the major ones. Only 14% of tobacco retailers in the city displayed a graphic health warning sign. 12% of tobacco retailers displayed quit line signage in their establishments. 71% of retailers in the city of Scranton advertise cigarillos or little cigars for less than $1. There's a frequency of tobacco products within 12 inches of toys, candy, gum, slushy machines, or ice cream. So they're trying to obviously target, the tobacco companies are trying to target our young people. They've spent $9.1 billion, according to this report, on marketing in 2016. The report also says that low-income neighborhoods have lower tobacco prices and higher retail densities, and youth are 60% more likely to have tried smoking and 30% more likely to be susceptible to future smoking if they have been more frequently exposed to tobacco promotion. So again, I won't go through all of the details in this report, but it was very interesting to see what goes on at tobacco retail establishments in the city of Scranton. So the reason I bring this up is because in meeting with the American Lung Association, there's actually something that council and the administration can do to combat this issue. One of those things is that one of the issues that was pointed out in the report is that about 30 retail establishments are located within 1,000 feet of schools. So one of the things that I would like council to consider in the next couple of weeks and into the new year is changing our language in our zoning laws. So one of the things that I have here is restricting retailers within 1,000 feet of schools. So all tobacco retail establishments, a place of business where tobacco or e-cigarette or vaporizer are available for sale to the general public. Tobacco retail establishments shall include but are not limited to convenience stores, grocery stores, gas stations, tobacco shops, vape shops. No such business shall be permitted within 1,000 feet of a public or private school established for academic education of children or minors under the age to buy tobacco products. So I would like my colleagues to consider this over the next few weeks and into the new year, because if you read this report, it's pretty clear, and the U.S. Surgeon General concluded that tobacco advertising and promotions directly cause both the initiation and progression of tobacco use among youth. And the other, really concerning thing to me is the lack of signage in these establishments. And I think that that is something that the city can directly influence. So we can use a comprehensive definition of tobacco product in our licensing laws to ensure that point-of-sale policies apply to emerging products, so new products, and we can enact policies that restrict where, when, and how tobacco can be advertised. Content-neutral signage limits the total amount of storefront signage regardless of content. So there's a few other things in here that I'd like my colleagues to consider. I think it's something that the city needs to do because I think this issue is only going to get worse. So something to consider over the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. I do have comments on a number of agenda items. We have a very lengthy agenda tonight and many positive items that we're going to be voting on. But I do want to take a minute just to mention when I came into the meeting tonight, I received this folder right here from the VFW. And it says, Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States presented to Friends of the Doughboy. It was presented to me for help with the Doughboy statue, and I have to say it's truly an honor to receive this, but I do want to thank former Council President Joe Wexler, who really got the ball rolling on this project, and of course the proclamation was dated for Veterans Day on the 11th, and the Doughboy statue, for those who don't know, was put to honor veterans and casualty of World War I. It was first dedicated back in 1940. The original Doughboy statue was actually made out of zinc, which is not a very durable metal. The new statue is made out of bronze. So hopefully that new statue will be there to honor our great veterans from World War I for hundreds and hundreds of years. I'd just like to echo my colleagues. I'd like to wish everyone a happy and very safe Thanksgiving holiday. As I mentioned, I will have a lot to say on agenda items as they come up. That's all.
5B for introduction, an ordinance appropriating funds for the expenses of the city government for the period commencing on the first day of January 2019 to and including December 31, 2019, by the adoption of the general city operating budget for the year 2019.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved. Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. I've done an initial review of the 2019 budget, and I do have several concerns. I am going to put all of my concerns and questions into writing to Mr. Bolzoni, and I'd just like to go through some of the things that are concerning to me after looking at the budget. So some areas are revenues, health insurance expense, salaries and wages, supplies and expenses, and the pension expense. So in taking a look at some of the line items, the first one that I have a question on is the proceeds 2019 bond issuance. The budget narrative included with the document indicates that the $1,000 that's in the line item is a placeholder for prospective 2019 refunding and capital improvement debt initiative. So as we know, the city has produced a 2019 balanced budget. There are a number of budgeted capital expenditures in most departments, so I'd like the administration to please explain if the city is planning to finance additional capital improvements through public financing. The second has to do with the non-resident wage tax. The budget indicates that the city did not collect any non-resident wage taxes for the 9 months ending September 30th, 2018. This seems like an error to me, and I'm asking whether it's combined with the wage tax. So I'd like the administration to please provide the amount of non-resident wage tax collected for the 9 months ending September 30th, 2018, and where it was recorded. And I'd like the administration to produce the city's budget worksheet calculations. Also, I did have an initial concern. We talked about it in the caucus with the real estate transfer tax. The budget anticipates an increase in property sales, where we budgeted in 2018 $3,375,000. We've only collected $2,224,686. So I don't know if we're going to hit that mark, but it does seem kind of low as of September 30th. Also, the current wage tax. Wage tax collection should be consistent with each month except for those months that have 3 payrolls. Looking back at the 2016 audit, the wage taxes were $26 million that we collected. I'd like the administration to please provide an explanation of why 2018 wage tax collections for the 9 months ending September 30th, 2018 are lagging behind historical trends. We budgeted $27,387,219. We've only collected $18,499,053 as of September 30th. And the 2019 budget, it's increasing to $28,587,533. So I have questions about that, and I'd like the administration to provide the city's budget worksheet calculations. I'd also like the administration to provide an explanation on why the 2018 local service tax collections for the 9 months ending September 30th, 2018 are lagging behind historical trends. Please produce the city's budget worksheet calculations on this. We budgeted $4,810,000. We've only collected $2,495,117. So I have questions on that. The amusement tax, 2018 budget, $385,000. We have not collected anything. I think I remember from last year that this does come in late, but I'd like an explanation on that. We've also budgeted the same amount in 2019. Also, in looking at the revenues, something I asked about it last year, under pave cuts for UGI, the city budgeted $195,000. We have not collected anything as of September 30th, 2018. The 2019 budget, we're budgeting $90,000. Now, I believe that the city's involved in a lawsuit with UGI over the recent changes to the pave cut ordinance, but I just wonder why we continue to budget for this when we're not getting anything. Also, it seems to me in looking at the pave cut line items that we're not collecting as much maybe as we should be, so I am going to have additional questions about that. I'm also concerned about the health insurance. I could be wrong on this, but it looks like we're understating the cost of health insurance. I have here, we may be understating it by $1,308,232. So we have a reduction in the police health care, and by the way, this is a good thing, but I'm just questioning where they're coming up with these figures from. $157,610.77. Fire, the healthcare budgeted for 2019 is reduced by $1,049,710.05, and DPW is $755,726.91. So that totals almost $2 million in budgeted expenses for healthcare from 2018 to 2019. So again, it seems like an understatement, so I'd like additional clarification on how they came up with those numbers. Also, if we're looking at the addition of positions in this budget, the first one is in licensing and inspections. So we're hiring a confidential secretary for zoning and planning for $30,000. So I would like the administration to please provide the name of the department personnel who performed secretarial services in 2018. In reviewing the budget, the Department of Human Resources does not have a confidential secretary, and I'm asking why licensing and inspections needs one. Also, traffic sign maintenance position in the DPW budget. So I'd like to know the number of 2017 and 2018 traffic sign maintenance projects, just an explanation of why this new position is necessary for the efficient department operation. It's unclear also in looking at the budget what the new salary is going to be for this position. I believe the person is now part-time and they're moving into full-time, so an explanation on that. Also, if we're talking about new positions, the Department of Public Works, Parks and Recreation Assistant for $30,000. I'd like the administration to please provide why this new position is necessary for the efficient department operation. I don't know, just my initial review, I think that's a waste of money. Also, in looking at the professional services account in the Department of Business Administration, the city continues to rely on outside consultants. City budgeted $250,000 for 2018. However, for the 9 months ending in September, we've incurred $418,906 in professional services, so we're way over budget. So I'd like the administration to explain why the city is over budget for 2018. Then we're increasing our professional services for 2019 budget to $500,000. So what is the reasoning for that? Also in the Department of Licensing, Inspections, and Permits, under building demolition, apparently the city's expecting to accelerate the demolition of properties in 2019. 2018, we budgeted $65,000. We've only spent $10,252 as of September 30th, and we're bumping that up to $150,000 in the 2019 budget. So I'd like to understand the rationale behind that, because it's my understanding that we have a lot of money in the OECD budget left over for demolition. So I'd like to know what the rationale there is. For discussion purposes, the electrical costs were annualized and then projected, and I believe they're understated by $128,081. Now, I do know that there have been energy improvements in City Hall. I'd like to know what they are specifically and what other actions the city's going to take to reduce the electrical costs from historic levels. In the law department, one of my concerns, the city budgeted a significant increase in professional services. Again, we budgeted $195,000 in 2018. We're budgeting $255,000 in 2019. So please explain the basis for the increase in the city's use of outside legal counsel, because we hired a assistant city solicitor last year, I believe. We're hiring another assistant city solicitor this year for $35,000. We're hiring a tax office solicitor for $25,000 and a project manager for $35,000 to assist in drafting RFPs to assist with project monitoring and development. Yet professional services are increasing 24%. So I'd like an explanation on that, because it would be, I would assume that if you're hiring more people in the law department, your professional service budget should go down. And I can tell you already, I don't agree with the project manager for $35,000 in assisting in drafting RFPs. That should be the job of the city solicitor. Also, what is the basis for and how did the city determine the 2019 budget amount for flood protection systems maintenance? We went from $50,000 in 2018. We only spent $25,216 as of September 30th of this year. 2019, $1,973,900. Now, there is a mention of the Kaiser Valley pumping station. So if that is it, and that's why we're spending all this money, how did they arrive at this figure? So I'd like the administration to produce the city's budget worksheet calculations on that. Also, gas, oil, and lube for the DPW. We budgeted $325,000. We're at $323,309. So I have questions on that. Please explain what action the city will take to reduce vehicle costs from historic levels. As everybody knows, the Attorney General's office opened an audit of the school district's vehicle costs. So I'd like to know what action, if any, has the city taken to assure issues identified by the AG and the school district are not present in the city's purchasing of gas, oil, lubricants, and tires. Non-departmental expenditures under court awards. We go from $350,000 in 2018 up to $725,000 in 2019. So I'd like to the administration to explain what city department is expected to be responsible for the anticipated court awards. The city is proposing to use the proceeds from a private placement for a lump sum deposit into the pension plans, which was voted on 2 weeks ago. The private placements will be secured by funds distributed by the Scranton Sewer Authority. The budget narrative does not address the private placement borrowing in 2018 or 2019, unless I missed it. My question is, has the net interest costs associated with the private placement been included in the 2019 budget? I'd also like to know, will the city have sufficient cash on hand to make the 2018 MMO payment? And if the city is somehow unsuccessful in obtaining a loan to fund the pension plan, will it create a 2019 deficit? And if so, what would the projected deficit be? Also, several other things here. The Pennsylvania Economy League had sent us a letter that I actually just received today. Some of the things I'm concerned about, the total expenditures proposed by the city in 2019 are $98,758,137. The exit plan's projections are $91,859,095 for a difference of roughly $7 million or 7.5%. So that's concerning. They mention notable variations from the exit plan. Capital expenditures are up 106.7%. Departmental expenditures are up almost 30%. Non-departmental expenditures are up 40.3%. And debt service is up 20.8%. Pell mentions that the city has reviewed these variances with the coordinator and has satisfactorily explained the necessity for the increases in these 2019 budget items. I would like an explanation as to why they are so high above the exit plan. Also, with some of the salary increases, there are a number of employees who are receiving salary increases. $12,500 increase for the fire chief, which I believe is excessive. I do see that the fire chief will be taking on an additional role with the emergency management coordinator, so I'd like a job description for that, what additional responsibilities that will be. Also, we no longer have the SAFER grant, I believe, for the fire department, so I'd like to know what the effect on the budget, what effect that will have on the budget and how we're absorbing those costs. I'd like to also know from the administration, how many outstanding bills do we think we're going to have at the end of the year? How many will might roll over into next year? I'd also like to get a statement of cash flows. I do believe, and Mrs. Schumacher has asked for this, this should be on a monthly basis, a monthly financial statement. will give us an idea of what demands are, what the demands are for cash, and see what the liabilities are on a monthly basis. So overall, I have concerns that we may be overstating revenues. We're spending a lot in non-departmental expenditures. So hopefully when Mr. Bolzoni comes, and I will provide this to him in writing so he can respond. I would like a response in writing so we can have a discussion when he comes in 2 weeks. Also, not that I was expecting it for various reasons, but there is no mention of any of the lawsuits in the budget. We've talked about Plan B for a number of months, but if any one of these lawsuits we were to lose, such as Act 511 or refuse, which we're relying on these funds, what is is there an alternative? What is the alternative? What does a budget without those revenues look like, and what would be our plan? Because it's my understanding, at least for the Act 511, that ruling could be coming down soon. And I think that's all I have for this agenda item. Oh, the other thing I have too, I'm sorry, excuse me, one more thing. Also concerned about overtime. So the total overtime for 2018 was budgeted at $1,058,701.30. As of September, the end of September of this year, we have accrued $1,345,853.86. So that's we're over budget by almost $300,000. 2019, we see an increase of overtime that we're budgeting $1,402,750. That's a 32% increase from 2018. So why is that? Now I understand that some of this overtime gets reimbursed, but I would actually like to see that sectioned out so we know what's being reimbursed and what we actually are responsible for. Police overtime, we're over budget right now as of the end of September by $176,064.77. That's 44% over budget. And fire overtime, we're over budget by $156,057, 56%. So we're seeing in the police overtime a 62.5% increase in what we're budgeting between 2018 2019, and a 27% increase from 2018-2019 in overtime costs. There's also a small item, and I may have asked about this a few months ago. There's a line item, personnel cost adjustment. 2018, we did not budget anything for this, and I don't know what this is. Year to date, we've spent $2,456.63. 2019, we budgeted $7,500. So I'd like to ask what this line item is for. Thank you.
Very briefly on the budget. The budget's obviously, for those who don't have a copy at home, it's a 135-page document. So I'm certainly not going to go through it all, but I want to hit on a couple big points. And every year around budget time, when you run into people at the supermarket or in the community, they always wonder how it affects them. That's most important. Obviously, just like your budget at home, year over year, some items get more expensive. Hopefully, some items go down in cost. For instance, now we go to the gas station and gas is finally going down, which I know is a nice break when that happens. But just like your budget at home, things fluctuate through the course of the year. But some of the key points, and I'm not going to read the whole budget message from Mr. Bolzoni, but there is one paragraph that I want to read and comment about. It says, in effect, the 2019 budget continues to pivot from crisis to recovery. The ability to sustain positive momentum will be critical. Broad economic development initiatives such as LRTA expansion and Opportunity Zone funding initiatives could have a measured impact on the city's continued improvement. And this paragraph, I think, is the most important part in this whole budget message, that for the first time, as long as I have been on council, the city has transitioned from being reactive to all the number of different problems that have happened through the years to finally being proactive, trying to grow our tax base, trying to put initiatives into place that are going to bring people into the city of Scranton. That really is the key takeaway for this budget, and not only just the budget, but we're going to be voting on some other economic development legislation tonight that's key to the city's recovery. But the bottom line for taxpayers is this is the third year in a row with no tax increase. 3 years ago, when it was mentioned there was no tax increase, some that like to criticize said, well, it's only because it's 2 years before an election, people want to get reelected. The next year was an election year. Some said, well, it's an election year, that's why the taxes didn't go up. Wait till next year, they're going to go up double. Well, there's no election this year, and this is the third year of no tax increase and no fee increase in our budget. Not to mention your taxes and fees not going up, but your services also aren't being cut. So there's two parts to the equation here. There are some new positions. There are some raises that are being given out that are long overdue. My position on raises has always been, if the city is in a financial shape where we're raising taxes on residents, there shouldn't be pay increases for city employees. When we're in a position where our budget is much more stable, like it has been the last 3 years, I certainly think the employees that work for the city that contribute to our success need to be rewarded as well in a reasonable manner. Again, the continued services are a huge component of trying to drive this economic development and bring new residents into the city that we've continued to talk about. It can't be done on one side of the ledger, and it hasn't happened overnight. The last few years have been much more stable for the city, but this couldn't have been done without a number of initiatives that were taken on by some members of this council, members of the previous council, that have not always been politically popular. It's not always popular to take on some of these issues, but this budget is the result of all of these items that we have taken. Again, it's not one little thing or one piece of legislation that changes the direction of the city, but little by little we have crawled out of the hole, and we're in much better shape. It's a 135-page document. Are there going to be things in there council members disagree with? Of course. Just on my review, and I haven't finished reviewing the whole document yet, there are things that if I was the mayor, I would not have put in the budget. But on the whole, bottom line for the resident is your costs aren't going up, your services aren't going down, and we're going to continue to invest in infrastructure within the city. So at first glance, I think it's a great budget, and as Mr. Bolzoni mentioned in his budget statement, that it really is a year of pivoting from being reactive to being proactive. So I'm looking forward to our public hearing next week, hearing from the residents. I'm especially looking forward to hearing from Mr. Bolzoni. I know I have a number of questions as well that I will discuss with him. But at first glance, it looks like a great budget to continue the city's recovery. Is there anyone else on the question?
On the question, I'm going to come back to, we talked about this in the caucus, the real estate transfer tax. It appears that it's not performing to the level we thought it was, but that's not actually true. The numbers that we're looking at year to date, it says September, but I talked to the BA and they're more likely end of August numbers. So if you take the numbers that we have, it's actually right on target to meet our projection or even exceed our projection for the second year in a row. So it sort of proves the proof of concept that we talked about, where you can actually lower a tax and get the same amount of revenue or more. I know it's something foreign to a lot of people that we've never done it before. We lowered a tax and achieved the positive results. So we really have to look at that again. And I'm going to take a hard look at license and permits, because they're exceeding expectations with their revenue. And what that tells me, the economy is doing better. There's more building permits, but it's also telling me that we have fees in there that are way, way too high. And we have certain things that we're doing that we don't even need to do anymore. So I'm going to take a good hard look at that as well, because I think it's time to roll back some of those fees and fines that are within that department. But I'm confident the real estate transfer tax will, again, outperform as it did last year. In fact, I would like to roll it back a little bit more this year. I'm not sure if we'll go there or not, but I would have no problem with reducing that again.
And just one additional comment, sorry. I think it would be helpful, since we received the budget in November, that when we, and maybe there's a reason for this, but it would make more sense to me that when we receive the budget, we receive the year-to-date figures in November, or if not November, then at least the end of October. That would make a lot more sense. Maybe a month makes a difference, but we're receiving the figures at the end of September, and as Mr. Evans said, maybe they have changed. So we'd like to see that since it is November. So I know I requested that last year, and we did not receive that. But again, I would like to request this year. I think that would make much more sense, and maybe there is a reason that they can't do that, but I would like to request that. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Gahan, about the update. It's always best to judge it, any kind, especially a budget or a profit and loss statement, on the most accurate and up-to-date information. I think the issue is it's just third quarter results, and that's kind of why the cutoff was September. I would like to get the first half or the first period of quarter four, but it just seems like the third quarter is the cutoff. Yeah, there are a couple issues that I have, and basically it's just with further explanation on bullet points within here. I won't rattle them all off, but there's just some things that are line items that without explanations to them. And I'm sure once we ask the questions and we can vet Mr. Balzoni on what those line items mean, what it pertains to, and where the city's expectations going with that would clear it up. And Mr. Evans, you kind of talked about what I want to talk about as well. I know you championed the idea of that license and permit department and cleaning that up. Page 19 of our backup is dedicated to just pretty much just fees that, I mean, don't really move the needle for the city, and I would think it would streamline the office. I mean, we have a pinball license listed on our budget that made $0. Now, come on, do we need that? Absolutely not.
No, we're still carrying, I don't want to interrupt, we're still carrying, I think it was 17 different fees that make less than $10,000. So,
yeah,
yes.
So I mean, there's just, again, that just needs to be cleaned up. I think the department, I think, would thank us for it as well, if we can get time with them, and maybe whether it was Director Hinton or someone else in that office, maybe we could just get half of these eliminated, or maybe even just lump them together into one easy, accessible one. But I mean, there's just too much going on here. But those are the only comments I have right now on the introduction of the budget.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 6, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended imposing a tax for general revenue purposes on the transfer of real property situate within the city of Scranton, prescribing and regulating the method of evidencing the payment of such tax, conferring powers and imposing the duties upon certain persons, and providing penalties by imposing the rate of the realty transfer tax at 2 2/10% for calendar year 2019, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Just like to echo what Councilman Evans mentioned. This is a perfect case study of reducing a tax rate, but generating the same or more amount of revenue. I would certainly be in agreement if we wanted to look at taking that down another 1/10 or 2/10%, since the economy continues to grow in our city, and I definitely think it's something we should take a look at.
Yeah, on the question, again, that was one of our very first things that we did as a council as far as reducing taxes, was we kind of put our toe in the water of could we actually reduce this rate and still get the same amount of line item? And as Mr. Evans said, we actually got more. So it's a good format to use for other things in the city. I would like a good hard discussion on lowering the wage tax by 1/10% too. Just get the ball moving, because there is value in it, and this is a system that works. And, I don't want to be a city that's going backwards, or I don't want to be a city that's stagnant. We're in good financial footing right now, and I think we need to open our doors and show people that we're a changed city, and that we're actually moving forward with this. And if this is the indication of lowering taxes can produce more revenue, then I think we need to take this philosophy and use it on other parts, which I would like to be the wage tax.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that if we can get, as Councilman Gahn mentioned, some of the updated information as far as year-to-date between now and the time we meet with Mr. Bolzoni, I think that will go a long way to solidifying our position as far as, what the revenue truly is and how much we can, move forward on some of these ideas.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 7, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended imposing a mercantile license tax of 2 mills for the year 1976 and annually thereafter upon persons engaging in certain occupations and businesses therein, providing for its levy and collection and for the issuance of mercantile licenses, conferring and imposing powers and duties upon the tax collector of the city of Scranton, and imposing penalties by imposing the mercantile license tax at 1 mill for calendar year 2019, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 8, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended providing for the general revenue by imposing a tax at the rate of 2 mills upon the privilege of operating or conducting business in the city of Scranton as measured by the gross receipts therefrom, requiring registration and payment of the tax as condition to the conducting of such business, providing for the levy and collection of such tax, prescribing such requirements for returns and records, conferring powers and duties upon the tax collector, and imposing penalties by imposing the business privilege tax at the rate of 1 mill for calendar year 2019, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 11, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended enacting imposing a tax for general revenue purposes in the amount of 2% on earned income and net profits on persons, individuals, associations, and businesses who are residents of the city of Scranton or non-residents of the city of Scranton for work done, services performed, or business conducted within the city of Scranton, requiring the filing of returns by taxpayers subject to the tax, requiring employers to collect the tax at source, providing for the administration, collection, and enforcement of the said tax, and imposing penalties for the violations by reenacting the imposition of the wage tax at 2 4/10% on earned income for residents and 1% on earned income for non-residents of the city of Scranton for work done, services performed, or business conducted within the city of Scranton for the year 2019, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 78, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 100, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended levying general and special taxes for the fiscal year 1977 by setting the millage for the year 2019, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter by amending Section 1, reverting back to the millage rates from 2016, which are .232521 mills levy on land and .050564 mills levy on all buildings, and by eliminating the dedicated millage for debt service contained in Section 2 and replacing the dedicated millage for debt service with a dedicated debt percentage of 32% of real estate tax revenues collected on a current year basis.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction and ordinance creating and establishing special city account number as noted entitled SSA Pension for receiving funds from that part of the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority proceeds used for the pension obligation note, taxable series of 2018, and the disbursement of payments on the pension obligation note, taxable series of 2018.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5I for introduction and ordinance creating and establishing special city account number as noted entitled SSA Funds for receiving the remaining balance of funds from the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority for dispersing for future city projects.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. I'd like to know what the remaining balance is of the funds from the sale, and I would like the city to give us a document that identifies future city projects that the money's going to be used for. We did receive this, I think maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago. I don't know if that's changed, so if we could get an updated copy, I would appreciate that before final vote.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5J for introduction and ordinance amending file of the council number 138, 2017, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a pension trust agreement with the Composite Pension Board to hold approximately $22,910,531.56 of the proceeds from the sale of the assets of the Scranton Sewer Authority in trust until such time as pension reforms have been enacted by permitting the city to transfer funds required pursuant to the original trust agreement to the Composite Pension Board through the issuance of non-electoral debt in a principal amount of approximately $22,910,531.56.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5J be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I can't remember if we received this information. I didn't get a chance to go back and look 2 weeks ago when we voted on the pension note. But could we please get a copy of documentation on how much of these funds will go into the pension contribution account and the discount rate reduction sub-account, and then whatever the balance remaining into the for the pension liability? Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5K for introduction and ordinance creating and establishing special city account number as noted entitled Street Lighting Lease Reserve Funds for the receipt and disbursement of street lighting lease reserve funds.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5K be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, I'd like to know how much money we're expecting from the street lighting lease reserve. Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5L for introduction and ordinance creating and establishing special city account number as noted entitled Highmark Healthcare Reserve for the receipt of Highmark Healthcare funds and disbursement of these funds for the city of Scranton healthcare costs.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5L be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, again, on the question. I'd just like a little background on why this account is being created. I know it's for the purpose of receiving these funds from Highmark Healthcare. How much money are we expecting, and what specific costs are we covering? Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5M for introduction and ordinance amending file of the council number 21, 2016, an ordinance entitled Defining and Authorizing Tax Exemptions from Real Property Tax in order to improve deteriorating real property in certain areas in the city of Scranton, establishing an exemption schedule and procedures for obtaining exemptions, and providing for non-permissible exemptions, and limiting amendment thereto, to expand the eligible areas, increase the duration of each exemption, and to lift the cap on each exemption.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5M be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I'm going to jump right into this. Over 2 years ago, we amended and drafted legislation to create a 3-year tax abatement for new construction. We thought then it had the potential to create growth and spur development. It did not. It simply wasn't enough. So hopefully we'll begin the process tonight of moving this legislation forward, legislation that I would call, at least for the city of Scranton, bold and dramatic. Legislation that is intended to change the way we do business. We want developers looking to build. We want investors looking for a sound long-term investment. We want home builders and we want young families looking to build new homes. We want young professionals and empty nesters searching for condos and townhouses. We want everyone to fully understand, because of this legislation, that we are open for business. This legislation that will provide for a full 10-year tax abatement citywide. An abatement that we hope will provide incentives for growth in every corner of our city, in each and every neighborhood, and of course, in the downtown. And this is a tax abatement that is not watered down like many others with a graduated reduction in years 6 through 10. It is a full 10-year tax abatement on all taxable improvements. In addition, like the previous legislation, there's an abatement for new condos and townhouses, as well as apartment to condominium conversions. And I think that sector could explode because of this legislation. I think the opportunity for rapid and sustained growth is both real and ready to happen. In Bethlehem, a short distance down the turnpike, a similar LRTA created over 4,000 full-time jobs and is bringing in over $9 million in new tax revenue. In Philadelphia, because of their program, the tax base grew by 11%, and the city is realizing an additional $48.1 million in annual real estate tax revenues from expired abatements. By 2026, they should be realizing another $169.4 million in annual real estate revenue. And because of their abatement, home building in Philly has increased by 367%. Our policy in the past, as it relates to LRTA, has always been to pick winners and losers based on individual projects. It's time for the entire city that they all get a chance at being winners. And finally, there's one thing that we all know too well. Our assessed real estate valuations are flat or declining. That means there is no growth, zero. Certainly the lack of reassessment impacts that, but we can't continue to wait for others to act or for lawsuits to play out. We have to change those numbers. We have to be able and willing to invest in our future. We have to write a new ending to our story, and hopefully, maybe that just begins tonight. So that's all I have on this piece of legislation for now.
Yes, on the question. There's no question that the city has financial problems and other problems over the last few years. So in looking at this legislation, you know, I look at it one of two ways. You know, we can vote this down and then there's still no development or little development, or and we remain stuck in neutral with all of the issues that have been talked about here over the last 5 years. Or we can vote for this and expand our tax base, hopefully, and give the city a shot in the arm. I think that, you know, there's been a few people that have carried the city over the last few decades, our elderly, working class, and they've carried the burden by paying property taxes. So by giving people a chance with this legislation, I think that we can expand the tax base and we can pull everybody up, hopefully. So I'll be voting for it. Thank you.
Yeah, on the question, in 2016, we did a similar LRTA for 3 years, which really didn't move the needle for us. And this 10-year LRTA, what I think is, other than extending it out for a 10-year period, we're going to have, in concertship with the Chamber, we're going to have the full support of the Scranton Chamber of Commerce helping us advertise and promote this. This is something that we didn't have last time with the 3-year LRTA. As Mr. Evans said in caucus, this is something that kind of didn't leave the walls of City Hall. If you didn't come here looking for it, you really had a hard time finding it. That won't be the case this time. While I think we could have some success with this in the residential section, I'm really hoping for more of a commercial influx with this. And I think that 10 years is the way to go. It's not going to cost the city 1 penny, and it's something that I can't wait to keep track of and watch new development happen in the city. I'm really excited.
I would agree with the comments of my colleagues wholeheartedly. There are a couple more comments to add. Obviously, the focus on Alerta is new development, businesses, building new homes, but it also can be used by the average homeowner who already owns a home that maybe want to put an addition on, maybe want to put a garage. Currently, if you put an addition on your home or a garage, your tax bill will go up. Under the LRTA, your taxes will remain the same assessment for 10 years before that additional mark hits. So it's not only strictly for new construction, but it also does have an impact for those who've lived in the city for a long time. A lot of times people will ask, well, how does it help everyone? And there's a number of reasons why it does, and my colleagues hit on this. We need growth in the city of Scranton. We are finally have gotten past a number of financial hurdles, and we're finally in a position where investors are beginning to look at the city once again. I want to thank the Scranton Chamber of Commerce for coming in and giving this presentation to us, really to open our eyes that there is a great opportunity here in the city of Scranton. The idea of having a 10-year tax abatement compiled with opportunity zones that were part of the Trump tax cuts really gives Scranton a unique opportunity to attract businesses into our city. The opportunity zones are in the city, but they're also outside of the city. I believe they go all the way up to Archibald, where the LRTA is Scranton specific. And when you combine the two of them together, that really is a great economic development tool for developers. I do want to issue a plea to the school board and to our county commissioners. Although City Council is going to support this legislation, the city cannot do it alone. We do need cooperation from the school board and from the county. When the 3-year version of this passed, I believe all 3 taxing bodies passed it unanimously. We're hoping for the same, but without our school board and our county commissioners coming on board, it really waters down what is a great tool. So in our caucus, we did discuss sending a letter to the school board, and I know Councilman Donahue and Councilman Gahn are going to have their Shared Services Committee meeting where it will be discussed as well. So I do want to thank, a sincere thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, for getting this to us. And once we have that presentation, it's something we wanted to act on quickly because this really will have huge results for the city. Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5N for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the council number 22, 2016, an ordinance entitled Defining and Authorizing Tax Exemptions from Real Property Tax in order to stimulate residential, commercial, and other business activity in certain areas in the city of Scranton, establishing an exemption schedule and procedures for obtaining exemptions, providing for non-permissible exemptions, and limiting amendment thereto in order to expand the eligible areas, increase the duration of each exemption, and to lift the cap on each exemption.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5N be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5O for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a memorandum of understanding by and between the city of Scranton and local union number 60 of the International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5O be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. I asked in the caucus if we can invite the Human Resources Director, Danielle Kennedy, and Labor Counsel for the city, Ned Abrahamson, into a caucus next week, hopefully, to discuss this legislation and 5P as well, the Single Tax Office Memorandum of Understanding. I have several questions on 5O. The first one is, how was the panel of physicians arrived at? The second question I have is, in the legislation, number 3, Part B, I want to pull that up really quickly. I'd like to know what the cost is to the city. Just give me 1 minute here. The city and the pension board shall split the costs of the disability pension application process, including but not limited to the fees of the examining physicians and the third-party administrator, at this time being Voc Rehab. So do we have an idea of how much this is going to cost the city on average? Also, there's a section in here that I don't understand and I'll need clarification on. Number 5, sick time reimbursement. The city will restore to all employees who donated leave to Caroline Janzak all hours donated, whether used or not. In addition, the donation of such leave, whether used or not, will not be held against employees for sick day bonus eligibility. In addition, Janzak will have her sick leave bank credited for all time used. The above is not intended to establish a precedence or practice between the parties. So I'd like to be given a little background on what that is, why that was included. Is this a violation of the workforce cost containment provisions located in our recovery plan? Also, and how much will this cost the city anything? Like, in other words, if a individual within the fire department who donated their leave was now at the end when they retire to cash that out. Number 6, EMT, EMR, paramedic, nurse certification. I'd like a copy of Section 8 of the second extension agreement that's noted in this documentation. It says Section 8 of the second extension agreement will be modified to provide that EMT, EMR, paramedic, nurse certification money shall be calculated and made part of the hourly wage effective January 1st, 2019. For those who are already in the certification cycle, such payments will be paid under the current system but prorated as soon as it is practicable. The city and the union shall meet to discuss revision of Section 8 of the second extension agreement. So again, I like clarification and background on why this was included, what the implications are for the 2019 budget. Are they already baked in? Because they're going to be, the certification monies are going to be made part of the hourly wage effective January 1st, 2019.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5P for introduction of resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a memorandum of understanding between Local Lodge 2462 and the City of Scranton and the School District of the City of Scranton regarding the Single Tax Office Collective Bargaining Agreement.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5P be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. Also, just want to make sure, hopefully we can get Mrs. Kennedy and Mr. Abrahamson in next week, that all of these provisions in the MOU do not violate any of the workforce cost containment provisions located in our recovery plan. Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5Q for introduction of resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials for the City of Scranton to enter into a loan-to-grant agreement and make a loan grant from the City of Scranton's Business and Industry Loan-to-Grant Program. Project number is noted in an amount not to exceed $140,000 to Rizzo Frizel Dental Group, PLLC, doing business as Electric City Dentistry, to assist an eligible project.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5Q be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5R for introduction of resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a multi-bridge projects agreement by and between the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Department of Transportation and the City of Scranton for Commonwealth's performance of City of Scranton-owned bridge projects.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5R be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. Mr. Pocious, our city engineer, came to one of our caucuses months ago to discuss this legislation that at that time would have been upcoming that we would vote on. So the total project cost to replace the bridge over West Lackawanna Avenue that goes over the railroad, Elm Street Bridge over the Lackawanna River, North Main Avenue Bridge over Leggett's Creek, and the Parker Street Bridge over the Lackawanna River is going to cost $23,400,000. The state is going to pay 95% of the total cost. So this is actually a really good deal for the city, because obviously we would not be able to afford taking care of all of these deteriorating bridges. The city is required to provide the remaining 5% as a cost of $1,170,000. So city's going to have the state assume all responsibility for the design and construction of this project. What I would like to know, and Mr. Pocious may have mentioned this months ago, but I can't remember exactly what he said at this time. I'd like to know when they think this might start. I think he said it was going to be, we're a few years away from this even being a reality, but I'd like, maybe there's an update on that. So Mrs. Reed, if we can ask Mr. Pocious that question. And I'd also like to ask the business administrator and the administration if we're going to put up $1,170,000, are we starting to prepare for that? In other words, I think I read in the budget that there may be a fund balance next year or a surplus. And I think I read also in the recovery plan that one of the recommendations was if we had a surplus to have a fund balance policy, which I don't think we have yet. So maybe we should start, squirreling away this money now in preparation to have to pay this, because it is very important. Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the council number 37, 2018. An ordinance authorizing the transfer of a vacant parcel of property owned by the city of Scranton to the Lackawanna County Land Bank in accordance with the intergovernmental cooperation agreement by and between the Land Bank, Lackawanna County, City of Scranton, and Scranton School District, property more commonly known as 2935, 2937 Pittston Avenue, Scranton, PA 18505.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, file of the council number 36, 2018, authorizing the issuance of a tax and revenue anticipation note, series of 2019, in the principal amount not to exceed $12,750,000, providing for the dated date, interest rate, maturity date, redemption provisions, payment and place of payment, in respect of the note, accepting the proposal attached hereto as Exhibit B from the financial institution named therein, for the purchase of the note, naming a sinking fund depositary paying agent, authorizing the proper officers of the city of Scranton, of the city, to execute and deliver the note, and certain other documents and certificates in connection therewith, authorizing and directing the preparation, certification, and filing of the necessary documents with the Department of Community and Economic Development of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, setting forth a form of the note.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for Adoption Resolution Number 85, 2018, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to accept and execute the Pennsylvania State Clean Diesel Grant Program grant in the amount of $128,723 to replace 2 street sweepers with new clean diesel street sweepers.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but we were awarded $128,723, and the match here that the city's going to put up is $386,169. Thank you.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Meeting adjourned.